Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into something truly fascinating and potentially transformative.
Hmm.
How generative AI is starting to show up in healthcare, and today we're really focusing in on mental health.
Yeah, it's a convergence of, cutting edge tech and this massive global need. We've got some really compelling material to explore here.
We do. It's drawing from two key sources you've shared with us.
Exactly.
So on one side, we've got a hard clinical look, a randomized controlled trial of a specific Gen AI chatbot aimed at mental health symptoms.
Right. That gives us some concrete data points, like a real world test.
Yeah. And then on the other side,
Well, we have a piece taking a much wider view. It's looking at the immense possibilities, but also the significant hurdles. If we want this tech to actually make a difference globally.
especially in places with fewer resources.
Exactly, like low and middle income countries or LMICs.
So our mission right now is to quickly pull out the most important, the most insightful nuggets from these sources for you.
Give you that shortcut.
Right. Help you get well informed on this topic fast. And we'll buckle up because there are definitely some findings here you might not expect.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Can you actually feel a connection with an AI chatbot? Seriously.
Huh. Okay.
And what does it really take to make this technology work for everyone everywhere, not just in, wealthy countries?
It's a complex picture, isn't it?
Yeah.
Real potential meeting, well, real challenges.
Hmm.
These sources give us both the can it work question and the how do we make it work globally perspective.
Okay. All right, let's jump into that first source then, the clinical trial.
Okay.
This is a study focused on a Gen AI chatbot named Therabot.
Right. Therabot. So this was a randomized controlled trial, an RCT, conducted across the U.S.
And RCTs, they're kind of the gold standard, right, for showing cause and effect.
Pretty much, yeah. Help show if a treatment causes an effect. This study involved 210 adults.
Okay.
And these were people experiencing clinically significant symptoms, either major depressive disorder, MDD, or generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, or they were at clinically high risk for certain feeding and eating disorders, CHRFED, they called it.
Gotcha. And how did they set up the trial?
Pretty straightforward, really. One group got access to Therabot for 4 weeks.
And the other?
The other group was a waitlist control.
Mm.
Basically, they waited.
Okay. And they checked in how often?
They did assessments at the start, baseline. Then after 4 weeks, right when the first group finished with Therabot.
And then later, too.
Yeah, and then again at 8 weeks for a follow-up.
Now, about Therabot itself, what's key here from the source?
Well, it's text-based, powered by generative AI, but importantly, it wasn't just some off-the-shelf AI.
Oh, how so?
It was specifically fine-tuned. They used expert-crafted mental health dialogues.
Based on real therapy.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Rooted in evidence-based approaches, particularly what's called third-wave CBT.
Third wave CBT, like mindfulness and acceptance stuff.
Yeah, precisely. Things like mindfulness, acceptance, commitment to values, that kind of thing.
Okay, so the big question then, did it actually help people feel better?
According to this study, yes. Significantly.
Really?
Yeah, the people using Therabot saw much greater reductions in their symptoms compared to the control group.
And that held true across the board for depression, anxiety.
Across all 3 conditions they studied, yeah. Depression, anxiety, and the risk for eating disorders.
Okay, much greater reductions. Let's put some numbers on that from the source's data.
Sure. So on the standard scales they use for depression, the PHQ-9,
Mm-hmm.
the Therabot group's average score dropped by over 6 points after 4 weeks,
Wow.
and almost 8 points by the 8-week mark.
And the control group.
Less than half that improvement. It was a really substantial difference, what they call a strong effect size.
And similar findings for anxiety and the eating disorder risk.
Yes, very similar large differences for GAD scores, and the weight concern scale they use for CHR-FAD, big effect sizes there too.
And you said these improvements lasted.
That's right. It's worth noting these significant symptom improvements were still present at that 8-week follow-up, 4 weeks after they'd stopped using the bot.
Okay, so the clinical outcomes, according to this trial, look really promising.
Mm.
But, digital health tools, sometimes people just don't use them, right? Engagement can be low.
That's a common issue, definitely.
How did Therabot fare on that front? Did people actually talk to it?
The source indicates it was well utilized, actually. Participants averaged over 6 hours talking with the bot.
6 hours. Wow.
Yeah, over about 24 days. They sent an average of 260 messages each.
260 messages. Okay, so they were definitely interacting.
And almost everyone in the Therabot group, 95%, interacted with it at least once. so high engagement.
And what about the feedback? Did they like it?
Seems so. On a 7-point scale, users rated it highly. Things like ease of use, how intuitive it felt, the
Here
design.
through the usability stuff.
Right. But more importantly, they reported feeling better after using it and found the sessions helpful. Average scores were in the mid-5s out of 7.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and many said they'd even consider using it on their own in the future.
So, high engagement, high acceptability. But you mentioned something unexpected earlier.
Ah, yes. Here's where we hit one of those truly surprising findings from this study.
Go on.
They measured the therapeutic alliance.
The connection, that, sense of trust and collaboration you build with a human therapist.
Exactly that.
Can you really feel that with software?
The study suggests something pretty remarkable. Participants rated their therapeutic alliance with Therabot using a standard measure,
Okay.
and the average score was 3.59.
Is that good,
Hmm.
bad,
Yeah.
average?
Well, the source points out that this score is comparable to what's typically reported for human therapists in outpatient settings.
Wait, really? Human therapists?
Yeah, the norm they cited is around 3.8, so 3.59 is right there.
Wow.
It really challenges that conventional wisdom,
Yeah.
that a true bond is impossible with AI for therapy.
Feeling a therapeutic connection with a chatbot, that really is an aha moment.
It absolutely is, and it's a pivotal finding highlighted in the study's conclusions.
So they see this as major proof.
They position this as the first RCT showing effectiveness for a fully Gen AI chatbot tackling clinical-level symptoms across these specific conditions.
Right.
It strongly supports the idea that fine-tuned Gen AI can be a feasible way to offer personalized, scalable mental health support.
But hang on, it wasn't just the AI running wild on its own during the trial, was it? Weren't there guardrails?
Absolutely crucial context. Yes, there was human oversight,
Meaning?
meaning study staff stepped in sometimes. They intervened 15 times because of safety concerns.
Like what kind of concerns?
Like if a participant expressed suicidal ideation, for instance.
Okay, serious stuff.
Definitely.
Oh.
And they also intervened 13 times to correct the bot if it gave an inappropriate response,
Such as?
like offering medical advice, which it wasn't supposed to do.
Ah, okay. So while the AI did the therapeutic interaction, there was a human safety net.
Exactly, a very important safety net.
Yeah.
The study also notes limitations, of course.
Potential biases from recruiting online, offering compensation, using a waitlist control instead of an active comparison. And they only followed participants for 8 weeks. We don't know the longer-term effects.
Right, okay. So strong initial evidence from a specific trial, U.S.-based, high-resource setting, showing Gen AI's potential, effectiveness, even that connection piece. Now, let's zoom out dramatically. Let's look at that second source, the perspective piece on Gen AI in global health.
Okay. Shifting gears.
Yeah, this shifts the conversation from can it work to, well, can it work for everyone?
Exactly. This piece really grounds the exciting possibilities we just discussed in the global reality, particularly for low and middle income countries, the LMICs.
Right.
Many LMICs face huge challenges meeting health goals, just limited resources across the board.
And the worry is AI could make things worse.
That's the concern, yeah. The growing gap in AI access between wealthy and poorer nations, the AI access divide, could actually deepen global health inequity.
So AI might widen the divide instead of closing it. That's counterintuitive. It's a real risk.
Yeah.
But the potential benefits in LMICs are also immense, precisely because resources are so scarce.
How so? How could Gen AI help specifically there?
Well, the source lists several key ways. Think about improving access and quality of care, fundamentally.
Okay.
Decision support systems helping clinicians, maybe non-specialists, with diagnosis and treatment plans. Personalizing care where experts are few.
That makes sense. What else?
Predicting and managing disease outbreaks. They mentioned malaria as an example. Improving how medical images are interpreted, like x-rays.
Telemedicine too?
Enhancing telemedicine, yeah. Reaching remote populations.
And you mentioned something about language earlier. That seems huge.
Yes. The potential to translate complex medical information into local languages, even dialects.
That's a massive barrier currently.
Huge. Affects health literacy, people sticking to treatment. Gen AI could really help bridge that gap.
Any other interesting applications?
They also point to potentially innovative roles, like training people locally, maybe in refugee camps or other resource-scarce settings.
Training them to do what?
To use prompts effectively, to get info from AI that remote medical professionals could then review.
Ah, so creating a new kind of link in the care chain.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And using AI to create synthetic data where real health data is patchy or fragmented, which is common in LMICs.
You can build better models.
Exactly. Plus, optimizing resource allocation. Think planning vaccination campaigns or managing diseases when you don't have fancy diagnostic tests readily available.
Makes sense. The source also mentions something about performance requirements being different in LMICs.
Yes, that's an interesting point. It's not just about being accurate overall.
Okay.
In LMICs, with limited resources, algorithms need both high recall, meaning they're really good at catching all the true cases of a disease.
Don't miss anyone.
Right. And they need high precision, meaning they avoid false alarms, because a false alarm wastes precious resources on unnecessary follow-ups.
That's a tough balance to strike. High recall and high precision.
It really is, especially when resources are tight.
Okay, so the potential is clearly there. Huge potential, actually. But this source also outlines some pretty significant challenges.
Oh, they are substantial. Beyond just the basic AI access divide,
Right.
getting the tech there in the first place.
What else?
You've got huge hurdles like lack of digital infrastructure, patchy internet, unreliable power, things we take for granted sometimes.
Absolutely.
Then there are cultural and language nuances. Goes
Yeah.
way beyond just translation. How people would actually interact with and trust AI health tools.
Could be resistance too.
Could be resistance from existing workforces, maybe reliance on manual labor, traditional practices.
And the bias issue seems massive here.
Huge. Absolutely critical. Models trained primarily on data from, say, North America or Europe
Might not work well elsewhere.
might not perform well.
Yeah.
Or could even be actively biased against populations with different demographics, different common health conditions, different environmental factors.
And the data itself can change.
Data can drift over time, yeah. Plus the risk of people, maybe even clinicians, over-relying on the AI without critical checks.
And the content the AI generates.
Might just not align with local cultural norms or practices, making it ineffective or even offensive.
Wow. Okay. And there was even an environmental point raised. That's surprising.
It is, but it's important. Training and running these large Gen AI models takes massive amounts of energy. And water for cooling the data centers.
Right.
In LMICs already facing energy or water shortages, this environmental footprint is a serious ethical and practical challenge.
Hadn't even considered that. And then, of course, just the risk of the AI making mistakes.
Always there. But the consequences could be much more severe in settings with fewer resources to catch or fix misdiagnoses or other harms. Legal, financial issues too.
Okay, so a minefield of challenges. What does the source suggest? What are the pathways forward? How do we actually navigate this?
Well, one key approach they highlight actually links back directly to what we saw in the Therabot trial.
Which was
Augmented AI.
human oversight.
Exactly. That critical role of human oversight. Integrating human professionals to review AI decisions.
Why is that so important in this context?
To check for those biases that might apply in a specific local context. To ensure the AI suggestions are actually feasible given the resources available on the ground.
So it's not about replacing humans.
Not at all. It's about augmenting them, making them more effective.
What other solutions did they propose?
Things like direct investment in local digital infrastructure, developing lower resource AI models, ones that don't need massive computing power or bandwidth.
More efficient models.
Right, and building strong collaborations, governments, NGOs, the private sector, all working together.
And tackling that environmental issue.
Using techniques like transfer learning, basically adapting existing models instead of training huge new ones from scratch. That reduces the computational load, the energy use,
Makes sense.
and creating clear legal and ethical frameworks, but adapted to local contexts, not just copied from elsewhere.
And involving the community.
Crucially, yes, engaging local communities in the development process. That ensures cultural sensitivity, builds trust.
Need local buy-in.
Absolutely. Plus capacity building, training local healthcare workers, IT professionals, so they can implement and manage these tools effectively, not just rely on outsiders.
And testing things out first.
Piloting programs, yeah.
Yeah.
Demonstrating success, building confidence, working out the kinks locally.
There was one other big proposal mentioned. Centers.
Ah, yes, the Centers of Excellence, a major idea.
Located where?
Located within LMICs, not just run from high-income countries.
Okay, what would they do?
They'd be collaborative hubs. Supported by international funding, maybe, but designed and operated in partnership with local experts.
Tailored to local needs.
Exactly. Customized to local needs, aiming to use clean energy where possible, and really fostering local innovation and training. Decolonizing AI development, essentially.
That sounds like a fundamental shift. From just deploying tech to a region.
to actually building local capacity and adapting the technology for the region with the region.
That requires real partnership.
It requires genuine global solidarity and truly equitable partnerships. That's the message.
Okay. So let's bring these two sources together now. We've covered a lot. What does this deep dive tell you, the listener, trying to get a handle on Gen AI's role in health?
Well, I think the Therabot study gives us that concrete early evidence. Gen AI can be effective for real clinical mental health symptoms, and people are willing to use it. They might even feel that therapeutic connection we talked about.
It takes the idea from theory to practice in one specific context anyway.
Right. It shows that talking cure potential seems feasible with this tech.
But then the global health perspective comes in.
And immediately puts that exciting potential into a much broader, much more complex reality.
Yeah.
It lays out the absolutely critical steps and those significant challenges: bias, privacy, infrastructure, environment.
All the things we just discussed.
All of those must be addressed with intention, with careful planning, if this tech is going to benefit everyone.
And not just, reinforce existing health disparities.
Precisely.
So you've now seen the proof of concept from that trial and also the complex, challenging roadmap and the roadblocks for scaling this globally.
It's not sci-fi anymore. It's happening.
But it's equitable and safe implementation. That's going to require deliberate collaborative action. A lot of work.
Definitely. The aha moments that really stand out for me.
Yeah.
Certainly that finding on the therapeutic alliance with the chatbot, that's just counterintuitive for so many people.
It really is.
The crucial need for human oversight, that augmented AI idea, not fully autonomous AI, especially now,
The safety net.
and the environmental footprint of AI training. That's a significant, often overlooked challenge, especially for global deployment.
Yeah, it reinforces that while this tech holds immense promise, truly immense potential for addressing massive global health and mental health needs, its power needs to be channeled really carefully. Addressing bias, ensuring safety through oversight, protecting privacy, building local capacity. These aren't optional add-ons.
They're non-negotiable steps,
Yeah.
foundational.
It's a powerful tool, no doubt.
But whether it helps bridge gaps or actually widens them, that depends entirely on how we choose to build and apply it, the choices we make now.
So to wrap things up then, generative AI. It's showing real promise in treating mental health symptoms. It has vast potential to help address global health disparities. That much seems clear from these sources. But realizing that potential means thoughtfully navigating some really significant technical, cultural, infrastructural, ethical challenges.
It demands careful planning and genuine global collaboration. It won't happen automatically or easily.
Which leaves us with a big question to ponder, doesn't it? Something for you, the listener, to think about.
How do we ensure that the power of generative AI is truly harnessed to reduce rather than inadvertently increase the global health equity gap?
How do we make sure it helps everyone?